Good morning, Sean here at Mountains Garage. It's Valentine's Day, and I'm going to do some of the less romantic jobs on the 6-liter project. Some of this stuff has to be done. It's not real fun. You just get after it. Here we go. Many years ago, when I did the 6-liter for the Model A, I removed the factory heater line nipples and drilled and tapped the holes, 3/8 and 1/2-inch pipe, and plugged them, thinking in the future if I wanted a small heater in the cab, I'd run some 90-degree fittings down and tuck them inside the frame, but I wanted to get rid of the ugly stock nipples. And now for the 72 Nova, I want to do the same thing. Gates actually makes a curved hose you can clamp on there, but seeing as how I plan on going relatively quick, driving over water doesn't sound like a lot of fun. So I got my 3/8 and 1/2-inch MPT pipe taps and plugs that I'm going to use. And I'm going to grab a pair. These are a pair of vice grips. I believe they twist right out of there. Let's give it a try. Pair of vice grips. Just get behind it with your prying device. Give her a little twist. Piece of cake. Tapping the holes is, well, you know, kind of boring. I got the water pump facing slightly downhill over a trash can to catch most of the aluminum. And I'll just carefully tap those nice and straight. It was about a year ago I watched a video of a nice old machinist guy on YouTube pluck all the chicken out of a 3/4 hole in the metal can and solder in a nipple, and that's what he kept his cutting fluid in. So I made a couple of them, and he got my wife hooked on the chicken. The first couple cans might have had some metal shards in it, but she's tough. And if you're interested, that guy goes by Tubal Cane or Mr. Pete 222. He's got about a zillion videos, and he taught me how to run my mill, my lathe, and someday I've thanked him, via YouTube message, but I'm glad I came across this channel. You can learn a lot from guys like that. When I drilled and tapped the water pump on the Model A, I had no idea how it was going to turn out when I pulled out the tubes. Whether I was going to have to drill the holes or not, but as it turns out, they're the right size for tapping. 3/8 and 1/2-inch pipe. Now I just need to put Teflon on my plugs and put them in. For a pipe plug like this, I like to use one wrap of Teflon tape with a little bit of Teflon liquid on top. And you got to hold the fitting this way to wrap it clockwise so it doesn't unravel when you thread it in. I've been over 180 miles an hour in the orange car over 100 times with hose clamps on my upper and lower coolant hoses. Double hose clamps, but hose clamps and rubber nonetheless. For the LS, they make a bolt-on lower connection with an AN fitting, and I already have a radiator with AN fittings. So in my mind, I was going to modify the top. And then I was finishing up my plug installation, went to tighten them up, ripped it out of the vise, and this broke its fall on the floor, and it actually bent it right over. I was trying to work it back. It started getting loose. My decision is made. Now I got to weld on an AN fitting for the top too. That's the way fate works. The universe is telling me that I don't need to be going fast with hose clamps on the coolant hoses. If you've watched any of my videos, and I hope you have, you know I don't even like hose clamps. I've told the story, I'll tell it again. One day last fall, on the trip that I ended up also negotiating to acquire the bandsaw, I had gone up because a buddy of mine who used to do all kinds of high performance work like I do had a half a truckload of stuff he wanted to sell. Stuff he'd collected left over from projects, whatever. This is, I sorted them out when I got them home, bagged them up by size, because if I don't do it when I get home, I'll never do it. And I was pretty sure, and I just dug for it. Check it out. You can get that out there one-handed. A -20. I was torn between a 16 or a 20 upper and lower hose, but seeing as how it's going to be a street car, I think 20 is a better choice. I think that'll work. And they sell one down here for 30 bucks all welded together. So I don't need to make anything here. I just need to do that and then have 20 fittings on my radiator. And that'll be safe. One head is free and clear and all the exhaust bolts are fine. This side is more typical. I have 3 broken studs. 2 are sticking out, which is good. I buy these uncoated nuts. They're 1/2 inch. Gives me plenty of room to weld around the stud. So I'll weld that one. I'll weld that one. By that time, this one will be ready to come out, and so on. This one is below flush, so I'll have to weld a little stud on it first with a MIG welder, just going around in circles. And then I'll put one on and see how I make out. I'm going to set the camera up and you can watch it live. I didn't notice when I grabbed the nuts, but the one I welded on second had paint on the inside and it didn't stick very well. So I had to go grab another nut. Yeah, now I just got to chase the threads. We're ready to keep going, cleaning up the heads. You saw me once the nut stopped glowing orange and started to turn back purple. I used a wrench to break it loose, moved it back and forth, and then I used the impact to go back and forth, especially the first one. I had to go back and forth quite a bit because I don't want to pull the threads out. So if you're careful and keep going, back and forth, go a little more every time, it's pretty good. These two I got while they were still hotter. This one had cooled down when I had to mess around to go get another nut. And they came out a lot easier, so I was able to zing them right out. Now I'll chase the threads, like I said, and get working on disassembling the heads. Let's talk about my ESAB, ESAB, Big Master 250. It was a replacement for the very popular Airco Dip Pack series back in the 80s into the 90s. I bought this in 1995 or 6. It's only the second MIG welder I've ever owned. Before I went to work at the municipality, I bought a Snap-on YA212. It didn't have fine enough adjustment. It only had heat and wire speed, whereas this one has 3 settings. This has been covered with a fender cover its entire life, so it still looks like brand new. I've even waxed it. The Snap-on welder, I never masked it. I never laid a nice bead with it. I built a race car with it. I mean, it was okay, but it was really frustrating. It's kind of like TIG welding is sometimes, and it shouldn't be that way. But I didn't know any better. It's the only welder I ever had. So I went to work for the municipality that I worked at for 28 years. They had the dip pack, the Airco dip pack welder. The day I fired that thing up, I was really good at MIG welding. It was the welder. In this case, it wasn't me. It's pretty rare. And I've learned some great techniques since then. So the local salesman, who was passed on, he was a great guy, but he sold me this whole package. I remember going to pick it up in my square body Chevy, and I love this thing. I don't use it enough even, but it makes you feel I can teach anybody to weld in less than a minute and probably have the same results I can do. Within reason. My only complaint with it is the fan runs constantly and it's really loud. It actually makes you anxious. It's so loud. It's like you're standing on the runway in front of an airplane. So if I could, find a quieter fan for it, I've never tried, and I'm sure I could, but it's probably super heavy duty. It'll last 3 lifetimes. So I just put up with it. I've gotten used to it. But you heard it in the background. It's loud. You'll also find this painted green sold by Linde, Linde, I believe. It still says Big Master 250. If you see one, I've seen them as low as $300 or $400 lately, because everybody wants the small welders. Grab it. It's a hell of a unit. In the intro to the video, did I say it was Valentine's Day or Daytona 500 Day? Romantic either way. So I got some cylinder head work to do this week. I'll catch you in a couple days. Until that point, I hope you have a great time. And like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, blah, blah, blah. Catch you next time.